Good morning and good morning and welcome to Morning Manna. I think I'm streaming now. Things are a little bit different around here. Uh, this is the Welcome to Morning Manna on the fifth day of the year. This is January 5th, 2022. And I don't know if you're like me, but like many people, I have a morning routine. Things that I do when I first wake up, when my mind isn't fully engaged. The first thing I usually do after getting out of my bed and getting dressed is going directly to the coffee machine. This is usually followed by sitting down and opening my Bible and eating some breakfast. And then I'll brush my teeth, and usually at that point, I'll go to my office and open up an internet browser to see what's new with the world. Now, I know I have to do this as I go to the headlines. I have to read the headlines with a grain of salt because we live in a day that's called the age of information age, or unfortunately, what's coming out is a lot of misinformation. And interestingly enough, the first headline that I read this morning was just about this, the use of misinformation. But the truth is that as we wade through pages of information and misinformation, it's becoming increasingly harder to tell the difference because the author or the authors of each article is wanting to steer our minds, they're wanting to steer our emotions to align with what they think, what they feel. It's seemingly unfortunate that these headlines, these news feeds aren't about as much as information, but as being used as battlegrounds, trying to win more converts to one's cause. And so the issue as we're reading this isn't necessarily the information, but the heart behind the information. What is the spirit in which it's written? And I'll admit that it's easy to point fingers on this one, to say that the problem's with the media or with other people, but we too should be very careful about the things that we post, the things that we repeat. We too should be very careful about the very things that we say. In Matthew 15, Jesus himself, after he's called the multitude to himself, he said to them, "Hear and understand, not what goes into the mouth that defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth that defiles a man." So after the teaching, Peter, as he so often did, went and asked Jesus to further explain what he had meant. And in verse 16, Jesus went on, and Jesus said, "Are you still so without understanding? Do you not yet understand that whatever enters a mouth goes into the stomach and is eliminated? But those things which proceed out of the mouth come from the heart, and they defile a man. For out of the heart proceeds evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witnesses, and blasphemies." And Luke 6, Jesus would further add that out of the abundance of his heart a man speaks. So that's all good and nice when our hearts are at peace, when things are well with us, when we are rested, when we're calm, and when we're in a good place. But what about when our hearts are troubled? What about when we're tired? What about when we're stressed out or hurting? What about when we're frustrated or at our wits' end? And we've just had a plain bad, nasty day. What about then? Sometimes in moments like these, we feel like a pressure pan ready to blow. And we can think of our tongues as pressure release valves. And in doing so, we'll spout off some things that we probably shouldn't. But for those of us who've done this, we know that this doesn't help. It doesn't make things better. In fact, it usually ends up making things worse. In the third chapter of the book of James, Jesus' half brother has a lot to say about the use of the tongue. But in verses 8 through 10, he sums it up by saying, "But no man can tame the tongue. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. For with it we bless God our Father, and with it we curse men who have been made in the similitude of God. Out of the same mouth proceeds blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things not ought to be so." So it's a predicament. We have our heart that is deceitful above all things, and we have our mouth that speaks out of the abundance of our heart. What should we do? What's the solution to this predicament? Well, I love what David wrote in Psalms 141, verses 1 through 3. He said in this psalm, Lord, I cry to you, make haste to me, give ear to my voice when I cry to you. Let my prayer be set before you as incense, lifting up my hands as the evening sacrifice. And then in verse 3 comes the very first thing that he prays for. He says in verse 3, set a guard, O Lord, over my mouth, and keep watch over the door of my lips. And this isn't the old adage, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Don't just remain silent, just remove yourself. He's saying, Lord, set a guard over my mouth. My hope is in you, that what comes out of my mouth will be pleasing to you. Keep me from the evil that is in my own heart. Don't let what is in my heart spill out and make things worse. Keep watch over the door of my lips. And sometimes, quite frankly, this needs to be our prayer, because not everything that comes out of our mouth, not everything needs to come out of our mouth. Not everything that is within us needs to be expressed through our fingers in our text or social media posts. Not everything needs to be said or expressed. It doesn't always make things better. But is it possible? Can the tongue really be tamed? Well, with God, all things are possible. And we're not talking just for salvation, but also for our sanctification. Our hope is not in our strength, but in His. It's in Him that we even have hope. Is it possible to be sanctified? Is it possible to tame the tongue? The answer is yes, but we need His help. So as we face this in this new year, this 2022, as we seek to do things differently than have been done in the past, and we've done in the past, and others done in the past, may we rely on His strength that makes all things possible. Have a great day. Ciao.